Well, I think everybody has been through the line. So I am Dr. Bryan Fall, as most of you know, and welcome to Fall Chiropractic Open House. So it's something we're excited to begin this year. Testing. Here we go. Hopefully this holds out. So this is something we're excited to actually bring a special presenter here today that is going to inform you and educate you and hopefully bring a few of the stories from his long history within the field of chiropractic. So he's been practicing chiropractic for over 20 years and has been in the Columbus area for much of that time. He's been featured on the news for his work with children, and as we do, he adjusts many children in the Columbus area. And he is spoken of highly within the chiropractic community. So he's also, in the little spare time he has, he's a martial arts instructor, and he trains folks in a form of martial arts known as ninjutsu. So just a little known fact about him. But we're pleased to have our presenter, special presenter all the way from Columbus today, Dr. Bryan Schuetz.
Thank you. Okay, can you guys hear me? Good? A little closer. Better? Okay, great. All right, so first of all, I want to thank Dr. Fall for having me out here today. I'm from Cambridge originally, and it's where I started, and I'm glad to come back here and to share with you guys today. I'd also like to thank you guys for coming out, for being interested in your health and interested in having a good meal and fellowship together on a Sunday. It's really a beautiful thing. I'm going to have to do it in my office when I get back. So I might wait till fall, though. But this is a really nice setup, and I hope you guys enjoy your meal. I just want to talk to you while you're enjoying your meal, explain to you a little bit about my past and how maybe it can affect your future. All right? So I call this lecture The Greatest Doctor in the World. And today I'm going to introduce all of you to the greatest doctor in the world. I got my introduction 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I was lifting weights in Columbus, going to school, and I had a weightlifting accident. When I had this accident, I heard a pop in my back and ended up on the floor, and I couldn't move. I had to be carried out of the gym and to my medical doctor's office. When I went to the medical doctor's office, and I was studying to possibly be a medical doctor at the time. So I went into her office, and they carried me in, set me on a table. She came in and immediately said I needed surgery right away. It was so bad that I actually lost control of my bladder. Now, 19 years old, that's not fun. And it doesn't look good for your future when that's something going on when you're 19. So I was pretty scared, and she recommended the surgery. And I said, I want to go see a chiropractor first because I don't want to have surgery if I can help it. Well, she told me they would paralyze me if I went to the chiropractor. And I looked at her, and I was already paralyzed. I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, and I couldn't hold my bladder, so it was really scary. But I ended up going to this chiropractor. And I went in, it was up in Columbus, went to his office, and they held me up to take some pictures of my spine, and they laid me on a table. He came in the room and he said, oh, Bryan, let me show you what's going on with your spine. And I said, well, look, I don't care what's going on with my spine. You can shoot me, stab me, whatever you want. Just get me out of this pain. This is awful. And I had the pain medications on the counter the medical doctor had given me, but I hadn't taken them yet. Well, before he worked on me, he took those medications, went and he flushed them down the toilet, and then he came back in the room and threw the empty bottles in the trash can. He says, you're not going to need that. So I thought, this guy's wacky. Well, then he proceeded to, I told him, I didn't really care what was going on, what he found in his films. He just started jumping on me. He jumped on me 3 times. He said, now get up. I said, I can't get up. That's why I'm here. He said, you don't understand. He goes, get up. And I got up and I walked. Now, I wasn't dancing. I'm not a really good dancer anyway, but I wasn't dancing when I got up off the table, but I could walk. So all of a sudden, I had this big interest in this chiropractic thing, obviously. So I asked him, what did you just do to me? This is like a miracle. I don't understand. And he said, well, you had a bone in your spine that was out of place. It was causing irritation and damage to the nerve. And eventually, I wouldn't be able to walk, and it could be long term. So what he did is an adjustment. And he took me in, jumped on my spine 3 times, and that was the adjustment. The adjustment put the bone that was out of place back into place. And he was explaining this to me. And he said, when you do that, you put the bone back in, you relieve the nerve, and you restore the life flow to your body. I said, well, that sounds really good. Can I do this all the time? Because, I felt so much better already. He said, sure, you can come in all you want. So I started seeing this guy and picking his brain, and I realized I wanted to go to chiropractic school. And he shared with me a lot about how the spine works. And one of the big things he taught me is when that bone in your spine goes out of place, more than just pain can happen. In fact, pain is usually the last thing that shows up. A nerve has to be compressed by 60% and lose 60% of its function before you'll have pain. So once you have pain, you're already at 40% function only. And if you think about like a fax machine, if you had a fax machine and you got your fax and only 40% of the fax came across, well, that wouldn't be a very good thing, right? Because you might not know what that fax really intended. When the brain's talking to your body, if it can only get 40% of the message out, or 50% or 60% or just less than 100%, then you're going to have less than optimal health, right? So it makes sense. And he then taught me that when that bone is out of place for a long time, it causes inflammation in the spine. And eventually, scar tissue starts to build in all the ligaments and tissues to hold the spine together. And the muscles turn fibrotic. They actually look like gristle in a steak. And that's very bad too. You don't want that, especially at 19 years old when I was a kid. So I thought he was the best doctor in the world. I said, look, you got me walking. First day, I'm feeling a lot better. I think this is probably what I want to do for a living, and I really think you're the best doctor in the world. He kind of chuckled. He goes, you don't get it, Bryan. He said, you have to have the understanding that the greatest doctor in the world is inside your head. The energy that runs your body flows over your nerves from your brain and tells your cells what to do every second of every day. And without that, you can't have 100% health. Agreed? Agreed. So I wanted to have 100% health, so I started seeing my chiropractor regularly. And when I left for school to go down to Life University in Georgia, I left out of Columbus, with hardly any money in my pockets. I was a student. I get down there, I'm in school a few years, and I had a baby. And that baby's name was Robert. And Robert was bigger than he was supposed to be, and they thought he was going to be. He was over 10 pounds for a first baby. That's pretty big. Well, Robert, he had an injury when he was born. They broke both of his arms, both of his collarbones, and they damaged his cervical spine, his neck, when they were pulling and twisting to get him out. So Robert was, they rate babies when you're first born at 1 minute and at 10 minutes. It's called an APGAR score. And his APGAR score at 1 minute was a 1. Now that means he was blue, he wasn't breathing, and he wasn't responsive. So I was a student, I was a senior student down at Life, my chiropractic school, and I did the only thing I knew to do. And I adjusted little Robert when he first was born. And within 30 seconds of him being born. And what happened from that time, they graded him at 1 minute to 10 minutes. He went from a 1 to an 8. So his eyes were open, he was responsive, and he was pink, like babies should be. And they told me that, little Robert, he was going to have problems growing up. He wasn't going to be able to participate in sports, to do all these kind of things that normal kids do. And I looked at the doctor and I said, well, thank you. I said, while you're here, I got some other questions for you. She's like, well, wait, what do you got? And I said, well, what's the meaning of life? Can you tell me that one? She's like, well, I said, well, I figure you're God. You're telling me what's going on with my kid and what's going to happen in his future. I don't know where you get that information from, but, I don't really buy your opinion. So I started working with Robert, and we started adjusting him when he was the baby intensively until he was 3 years old. And at 3, he started playing soccer. And then he got to high school, and he played basketball, he played football, and he played lacrosse. Then, when he graduated high school, he wanted to Ohio State and played lacrosse there, club lacrosse at Ohio State. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. Yeah, the kid he's an amazing physical specimen. But, you know, for the kid that they said would not be able to do all these things because of the nerve damage he had in his arms and the broken bones that he had at birth, it was a real miracle for me. And that's the second chiropractic miracle in my life, myself and my son. And I know that I take great honor in working on people with their spines, trying to free that nervous system so it can work like it should. And it goes back to what my chiropractor said when I first started. He said, you got a bone out of place, irritating a nerve, and causing problems. And he told me that's called a subluxation. Subluxation is not a dislocation, because if you get a dislocation, you have a spinal cord interruption, and you're not going to get better with an adjustment. But a subluxation is a little less than that. And it can be to the point where it causes the symptoms I had where I couldn't walk, or my son had where he couldn't breathe. And that's a very big, dramatic change that happened in our lives. But it happens in just about everybody, and people don't realize it. Osteoarthritis and degenerative joint disease of the spine is the most common disease in human beings. So as you go through life, everybody has it. And I like to use this analogy. When you're first born, you come out and hopefully you got fully functional nervous system. And then, hold on just a minute. Okay, and then we go through life and we want to maintain that nervous system. If you don't maintain it, your health can't be what it should be. And the way that my chiropractor explained to me, because I told him he was the greatest doctor in the world. He said, don't think of me as the greatest doctor, because the greatest doctor lives inside of you. He said, think of me as a hammer. You don't thank a hammer for building a house. You thank the carpenter. And God is a carpenter that builds this house that we live in, this body. And it's maintained through that intelligence every day. And if you don't maintain it, then it will be reduced. And when it gets reduced, then we have disease. We start out, we have cellular problems. The cell can't function because the brain can't talk to the cells like it should. The cells become deformed, they don't work like they should, and you have disease in the tissues. Then the tissues eventually lead to your organs. When you have trouble with the organs, eventually you have problems with the organism, which is who you are and who I am today. So what I want you guys to realize is that health comes from above down and inside out. When you take and adjust somebody's spine and free that nervous system to work like it should, you have a higher potential of being healthy, much higher than you did before. If you maintain that and you get adjusted regularly, you will maintain a higher level of health and happiness in your life. From the injuries that we all go through growing up, when you fall down, when you're born, first of all, there's injury. They say 85% of babies born have damage to the cervical spine because of the pulling and twisting. Has anybody ever seen a birth around here? Yeah? And you see how they pull and twist to get the head out, and that causes damage. And then you go walking. You know, you learn how to walk. The average baby falls 50 times or more a day when they're learning how to walk. And then anybody ever fall riding a bike? I got hit on my bike up here on 8th Street when I was a kid by a car. And so I had some problems from that as well. But all these things that I had building up, playing sports, riding my bike, learning how to walk, all these things, led to that one time when I was in the weight room and had that big pop in my back and the bone shifted way out of place. If I hadn't had that, I might have gone through life not knowing that I needed to keep that nervous system in good health. So I'm hoping that sharing my story and my son's story with you today will help you to make a decision to take care of your health and your spine. And I know I've been with Dr. Fall, and he adjusted me today before we started the talk. And he does a great technique here where he's going to take a thermograph of your spine. He's going to get to see how the levels of your spine are functioning. And function is so very important. So then he can take other scans of you as you progress through care, and you will see the change. You'll see that your body's getting better, not just feeling better. Because remember, if you rely on how you feel, you could have a 60% damaged nerve before you'll feel it. So you don't want that. You want to use a scientific, objective way to measure your spine and your health. And that's what he has here. It's a technology that a lot of people don't have, but it's something that you really want to consider when you're picking a chiropractor in your town. And so I'm very happy and honored to be able to share with you guys. And I would love to answer any questions you have while I'm here. And I know that if you sign up to get your thermoscan with Dr. Fall today, he can actually do them today, right? So he's going to do those for you today. And I recommend everybody from young to old go and get their spines checked, get your nervous system in alignment, get it working like it should. And I want to thank everybody for having me out today, and God bless.